What's up, nerds? So it's that time again where Apple releases a new phone, and this time it's the iPhone 16. Really not that much has changed. Now I will say this is a bigger upgrade than the iPhone 14 to the iPhone 15 because those are basically the same phone. Still on the iPhone 13, which isn't old by any means, but Apple really wants me to feel like it's old. So I'm gonna go over some of the tactics that they use to market the iPhone 16 to you and how they do this with basically every single iPhone launch. And they always have these different tactics to get you in the door to buy a new iPhone. So I'm gonna talk about why it's not really necessary, and I'm gonna go over 5 different ways how Apple actually does this so that you get stuck in the cycle of constantly buying a new phone. The number one way that Apple actually does this is through FOMO. So they have you constantly feeling like you're gonna miss out on this new product or these new features, and they really are the masters at this. Now there's other brands that do this. Another one that comes to mind is Mischief, which does limited time drops. So people wanna go and buy these products before they're run out and they're gonna miss out on this experience. So the iPhone 16 has all of these brand new AI features, and I feel like this is that main selling point for the iPhone. So they're selling the actual software on the phone as opposed to really the hardware. The hardware is pretty similar, and I think Apple knows that as well. They did add a button, which is pretty interesting. They added a button to the iPhone 14 though like 3 years ago, so I don't know how brand new of an idea this is, but I will say that Apple is really trying to get you in the door with all of these new features. This fear of missing out is used pretty heavily within just like the advertising sphere and things like that, but Apple really takes the cake by having this fear of missing out for even people who don't even use iPhones. So another example of how they actually do this is with the green bubbles as opposed to the blue messaging bubbles, and so that makes people on Android really feel like they're missing out because they lose out on all the iPhone features. Now Apple has literally been sued because this has been deemed by the EU as sort of like a manipulative tactic to get people to buy iPhones, but it is a really strong tactic, and I do see why they use that. Next, they have this ecosystem where you're kind of locked into using this, and so this sort of like the green and blue message thing. Let's just say you want to get a computer and you don't really have a use case for the computer aside from some basic web browsing or like opening up Microsoft Excel files, things like that, then you're gonna get a Mac because you already own an iPhone. So it just feels like the natural progression, and they're really great at doing this. So it's way different when you have like a Samsung phone and you think about buying like a Windows computer versus a Mac. There's a little bit more decision making you have to do. You're not necessarily automatically gonna go to Windows. You might view the Apple computer and say, oh, this is pretty cool, but then once you get that Apple computer, you're gonna miss out on some features because you don't have the iPhone. And it's like this for all their products. I mean, the Apple TV is like crazy because you actually have to own an iPhone to even use that thing. If you try to connect to a Wi-Fi network that needs like a login screen, you literally need to bring an iPhone near it so that you can log into that page. I don't really know why you would buy an Apple TV without an iPhone, but it is crazy how much of an integration you need. So you need another Apple product to operate another one. If you want to get an Apple Watch, there are some workarounds, but you really can't connect to it without an iPhone. So there's just a lot of different things. They really try to lock people out of buying one product, and instead you have to buy a whole suite of them to get them to work, which is a genius marketing tactic. And I think something that Apple does that other companies really don't do is they involve this marketing within their development of the actual system. So the ecosystem is another example where when they develop that, it is an insane marketing tactic because now they're able to market the entire ecosystem to you, as well as develop for that whole ecosystem. So the more they develop for that ecosystem, the more it makes you feel like you want to buy that phone. They just keep going deeper and deeper into these integrations. Even in the newest iOS 18 update, they show how you can actually use your iPhone on your computers. You can actually sign into your phone and basically do all the features that you can on your actual phone on your laptop, which is a cool feature to have, and they're really great at selling this to you. So this sort of goes along with the FOMO thing, but they sell you this idea of like, okay, this is like the ideal me with every single Apple product, and this is how easy my life would be with that. And as somebody who has used this ecosystem, I feel like it is really nice to have. I mean, AirDrop is basically invaluable. You can't really find anything like that on Windows. It isn't as perfect as Apple sells it to be, and that's really with any product, but they really sell this like ideal vision of like, oh, this could be me. And you'll see it in a lot of their marketing and stuff. They have people who like put on AirPods, for example, and start floating, which is a really great advertisement. But obviously, like, this is so dramatic compared to what reality is, which is just like noise canceling is cool, but you can get that on any headphone. It's not really an Apple exclusive feature. Next, what they do is they try to make tech that is like everyone owns it into their own. So like a great example of this is wireless charging. So their MagSafe chargers are like the snapping feature and stuff on the back of the phones. Those are just wireless chargers, and those have been around on Android phones for 4 or 5 years prior to when they were on iPhones. But when Apple renamed it MagSafe, they made it into their own system. So now that MagSafe is on the iPhone, you really can't get that on Android because they own copyright for that name and stuff like that. So they're not gonna make a product and call it wireless charging. It's the exact same thing with their like A16 Bionic chips or their M1 chips. They have these really cutting edge sounding names for all their products that make you feel like it's something that no other company has. And I will say, like, the M1 chip and the M2 chip are things that no other company has, but like you don't see Intel advertising the Core i9 as like the best processor to get. It's just like people who build computers know about the Core i9, you know? It's just really genius that they name things like this so that you feel like it's a different product. I mean, they are the ones who made the Genius Bar after all. iCloud and all their services act as advertisements for their phones. So they are constantly selling this idea of like, oh, I could upload everything to iCloud. iCloud is so fast and things like that. When you have those options like exclusive to iPhones, it makes the product feel a lot more like luxury, I guess, because people feel like these options are only exclusive and available to me. What's actually really interesting that's happened in the past 10 years is basically anyone who really would want an iPhone has already gotten one. So they're not really trying to sell to a new customer base. Everybody knows what iPhones are. So what they've started changing their marketing strategy into is sort of advertising the new phone. So you need to upgrade to this phone or to that phone. What they're doing is like showing you a ton of features and making exclusive features, not just for iPhones now, but they're making them for exclusively certain phones. So the Apple Intelligence is a great example of this because that is only available on the iPhone 14 and 15. And I'm not saying that it doesn't make sense that they need a faster processor to actually do on-device AI processing, because of course they do. It's like a pretty complex process, but I am saying that some of the features that they are using could be brought down to some of the older phones. It's not like the iPhone 13 is slow by any means. It's actually really fast. So I don't know why they would block off all those features apart from them trying to make this a reason to upgrade your phone, because I think they saw that people really stopped caring about the camera features as much, and they're going crazy on those camera features this year. I don't know why they have an entire button dedicated to it, because I go to a film school and I really don't see people filming with their iPhones ever. I'm not filming with my iPhone right now. And so I don't know who they're trying to cater to with this market. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're really cool features, but I don't really understand that aspect of their development and advertising, but I do understand why they're trying to block off certain features. I think they're running out of ideas for hardware specific features, and so now they're moving everything over to software and Apple Intelligence. And I think what they're going to start doing is making more apps that are exclusive to newer phones. So they're going to basically block off certain softwares depending on what computer you have. So I do think that that's kind of like a scummy thing, but I understand where they're coming from in terms of marketing and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy the new iPhone, because I mean, I have an iPhone, I have a MacBook, but I also do use Windows like a lot as well. And I'm sort of indifferent to the two of the companies, but I am saying that we should really be on the lookout for like all of these advertising tactics, because like your attention is your money essentially. I mean, whatever grabs your attention the most, you're probably more likely to spend money on it. And especially with how Apple advertises everything, they have billboard ads everywhere. People own iPhones all over, and like when you see somebody else with the iPhone 16, you're like, wow, that's cool. Like they'll show you some cool feature, and they're basically doing the advertising for Apple. They don't even have to do anything. There's a thing in advertising about how word of mouth is the best advertising, because that is the most trustworthy source, is like one of your friends or something who tells you about a new feature. And like you might see your friends show you that and you're like, man, I really have to have that. But it is good to just kind of understand that that is going on and kind of pull yourself out of like, oh, I really need to buy this phone, and kind of look at the bigger picture where it really doesn't matter if you have the newest phone or anything like that. I don't think most people care. But yeah, then again, their features are pretty cool. But that's pretty much it for me. If you do like any of these like conceptual videos and stuff like that, be sure to drop a subscribe. Or I got videos right there about how apps try to manipulate you, and it's really interesting to check out all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. So yeah.